Welcome. Today we are going to take a look at the life of Wilhelm Reich and his legacy. If you want more deep dives like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Wilhelm Reich, born in Dobzau, Galicia, in 1897, was the first of two sons to Leon and Cassilie Reich. Raised on a cattle farm in Gigenetz, Bukovina, Reich's childhood was marked by a jealous father and strict adherence to German-speaking traditions despite their Jewish heritage. His younger sister died in infancy. Tragedy struck in Reich's mid-20s when his mother's affair with his tutor was discovered, leading to her. Blaming himself, Reich disclosed the affair to his father, who subjected him to beatings. Following his mother's death, Reich attended an all-male gymnasium in Czernowitz, dealing with persistent psoriasis. His father succumbed to tuberculosis in 1914, leaving the family destitute. Despite graduating in 1915, the Russian invasion of Bukovina forced Reich and his brother to flee, losing everything and leaving behind a once well-to-do past. In the period from 1919 to 1930 in Vienna, Wilhelm Reich underwent significant life changes and intellectual development. After serving in the Austro-Hungarian army during World War I, he moved to Vienna for undergraduate studies, initially in law but later switching to medicine due to a passion for the subject. Struggling with poverty in post-war Vienna, he faced harsh living conditions while studying medicine and fell in unrequited love with a fellow medical student, Leo Lasky. During this time, Reich grappled with the question of what is life, and found the mechanistic concept of life unsatisfactory. He sought a tangible understanding of the creative power governing life, emphasizing the importance of a vitalist perspective in natural science. In 1919, Reich encountered Sigmund Freud, seeking a reading list for a sexology seminar. This meeting marked the beginning of a significant relationship, with Freud allowing Reich to meet analytic patients and eventually becoming a member of the Vienna Psychoanalytic Association. Reich started his own analysis with Isidor Sadger and established his practice on Bergasse 7, the same street where Freud resided. Despite Freud's warnings against involvement with patients, Reich engaged in an affair with one of his first patients, Laure Kahn, who tragically died of sepsis after their meetings were prohibited by her parents and landlady. After Laure Kahn's death, he entered into an affair with Annie Pink, a medical student and his fourth female patient. Despite Annie's father insisting, Reich married her in March 1922, and the couple had two daughters, Eva and Laure. Reich, a war veteran, completed a combined bachelor's and MD in 4 years and graduated in July 1922. He worked in internal medicine at the University Hospital and studied neuropsychiatry under Nobel laureate Julius Wagner von Jauregg. In 1922, Reich joined Freud's psychoanalytic outpatient clinic, the Vienna Ambulatorium, initially as an assistant director and later becoming its director of training. The clinic, providing free or reduced-cost psychoanalysis, treated numerous individuals, including those suffering from shell shock after World War I. Reich's work at the ambulatorium marked a shift from treating neurotic symptoms to examining chaotic lifestyles and antisocial personalities, defining them as character armor. Reich's contributions to psychoanalysis were acknowledged as he joined the faculty of the Psychoanalytic Institute in Vienna in 1924. He became known for his captivating weekly technical seminars at the ambulatorium, where he presented his theory of character structure. Reich argued that psychoanalysis should focus on the examination of unconscious character traits, later known as ego defenses. Fritz Perls, who later developed Gestalt therapy, attended these seminars from 1927. Reich's eloquence and captivating personality during these sessions gained widespread recognition. His first book, Der Triebhaft Charakter, published in 1925, studied antisocial personalities encountered in the Vienna ambulatorium, emphasizing the need for a systematic theory of character. The book gained professional recognition, earning him a position on the executive committee of the Vienna Psychoanalytic Society in 1927, arranged by Freud despite objections. Reich, finding the society uninteresting, felt like its shark in a pond of carps. Starting in 1924, Reich explored the concept of orgastic potency, asserting that psychic health and the ability to love depended on uninhibited orgasm as a full discharge of libido. He believed orgastic potency was the goal of character analysis, but this idea faced ridicule, earning him nicknames like the prophet of the better orgasm and the founder of a genital utopia. In 1926, Reich's brother died of tuberculosis, TB, the same disease that claimed their father. Reich contracted TB in 1927, spending time in a Davos sanatorium for a rest cure. The experience triggered a political and existential crisis, leading him to doubt established views. After witnessing the July Revolt of 1927 in Vienna, Reich, influenced by the irrationality he observed, joined the Communist Party of Austria in 1928, expressing a newfound insight into the social and political irrationalism, drawing parallels with schizophrenic illuminating experiences. Following the Vienna shootings he witnessed in 1927, he responded by opening 6 free counseling clinics in the city, collectively forming the German Society of Proletarian Politics, POL. These clinics provided a mix of psychoanalytic counseling, Marxist advice, and contraceptives, advocating permissiveness that unsettled both psychoanalysts and the political left. Reich took to the streets with a mobile clinic, offering education and distributing pamphlets. In 1927, Reich published Die Funktion des Orgasmus, The Function of the Orgasm, dedicated to Freud. Although Freud initially seemed unimpressed, he eventually responded positively, acknowledging the complexity of neurosis. The book posited the genital orgasm as an antidote to neurosis, a view that Freud found oversimplified. Reich's visit to the Soviet Union in 1929 further solidified his conviction regarding the link between and economic oppression. He became more determined to integrate Marx and Freud, publishing the article Dialectical Materialism and Psychoanalysis in the German Communist Party Journal. This marked the beginning of his Marxist period, during which he explored the compatibility of psychoanalysis with historical materialism, class struggle, and proletarian revolution. This period included significant works such as The Imposition of Morality, 1932, The Struggle of Youth, 1932, The Mass Psychology of Fascism, 1933, What is Class Consciousness? 1934, and The Revolution, 1936. In the period from 1930 to 1934, Wilhelm Reich moved to Berlin with his wife, where he established clinics, taught education, and published pamphlets in working-class areas. Joining the Communist Party of Germany, he grew impatient with delays in publishing one of his pamphlets and established his publishing house, Verlag für Politik. His involvement in a conference promoting adolescence led to the party's decision not to publish his material. In 1933, Reich's contract with international psychoanalytic publishers for character analysis was cancelled, likely due to his stance on teenage. He published Character Analysis, considered his masterpiece, in 1933, seeking to redefine psychoanalysis by emphasizing the influence of social processes on character structure. Reich proposed a functional identity between character, emotional blocks, and tension in the body, introducing the concept of character, or muscular/body, armor. Reich's first marriage to Annie Reich ended in 1933 due to a serious relationship with Elsa Lindenberg. In the face of increasing influence and attack on his work, and exclusion from the Danish Communist Party, Reich and Lindenberg left for Vienna and subsequently moved to Denmark. Despite attempts to settle in the UK, Reich faced skepticism from psychoanalysts and moved to Malmö in Sweden. Placed under surveillance due to suspicions, his visa in Sweden was not extended, leading the couple to briefly return to Denmark under assumed names. From 1930 onward, Reich began exploring treatment methods beyond the constraints of traditional psychoanalysis. Contrary to the conventional psychoanalyst's position, he sat facing his patients, engaging in dialogue rather than employing typical responses. Observing changes in body posture after successful psychoanalysis, Reich aimed to communicate with the body through touch. He introduced character analytic vegetotherapy, abandoning psychoanalytic restrictions on physical contact. The method involved massaging patients to release body armor, asking them to simulate emotions physically, and aiming to trigger repressed memories. Reich presented the principles of vegetotherapy in a paper titled Contact und Vegetative Strömung, Psychological Contact and Vegetative Current, at the 13th International Congress of Psychoanalysis in 1934. His approach, described as a physical attack by the therapist, eliminated the psychoanalytic doctrine of neutrality. Reich rejected psychoanalytic taboos, emphasizing human connection and touch. During sessions, he pressed his thumb or palm on specific body areas to dissolve muscular rigidity, seeking to retrieve repressed memories. In August 1934, during the Lucerne Conference, Reich faced opposition and was asked to resign from the International Psychoanalytical Association due to prioritizing his communist views over Freud's psychoanalytic ideas. The decision was influenced by theoretical differences and appeasement to the rising power of National Socialism. Anna Freud, then the acknowledged leader, played a significant role in this decision. Reich's daughter, Lore Reich-Rubin, blamed Anna Freud for destroying her father's career. Despite evidence suggesting Anna Freud's regret later on, Reich's reputation suffered, and he was excluded from the conference. Camping outside the hall, Reich solidified his image as a radical, leading to his expulsion from the International Psychoanalytical Association. In 1934, Wilhelm Reich and Elsa Lindenberg moved to Oslo, Norway, where Reich lectured on character analysis and vegetotherapy at the invitation of Professor Harald K. Schjelderup. They stayed for 5 years. During this time, Reich sought to ground his orgasm theory in biology, exploring whether Freud's libido metaphor could be linked to electricity or a chemical substance. Influenced by the work of Friedrich Krauss, Reich proposed the orgasm formula: mechanical tension, bioelectrical charge, bioelectrical discharge, and mechanical relaxation. In 1935, Reich conducted oscillograph experiments, attaching the device to volunteers as they touched and kissed. Notably, future German Chancellor Willy Brandt participated. Reich also measured psychiatric patients' bioelectrical responses. The results were detailed in Experimentelle Ergebnis über die elektrische Funktion von und Angst, the bioelectrical investigation of and anxiety, 1937. From 1934 to 1939, Reich conducted Bion experiments, documented in Die Bion, zur Entstehung des vegetativen Lebens, the Bion experiments on the origin of life, 1938. He examined protozoa and created cultured vesicles, believing he observed a rudimentary form of life called bions. Reich claimed that bions led to the development of T bacilli, implicated in cancer. This marked the early stages of Reich's orgone theory, suggesting a connection between orgone energy, bionous degeneration, and cancer development. In 1937, Wilhelm Reich faced strong opposition from Norwegian scientists regarding his bion theories, particularly from Leif Kraberg, a pathologist, who criticized Reich's control measures and accused him of ignorance. Reich's visa expired in February 1938, leading to a campaign against him in leading Norwegian newspapers. Despite international support, Reich's visa was renewed only under the condition that he could not practice psychoanalysis. The opposition affected Reich's personality and relationships, leaving him humiliated and embittered. During 1934 to 1937, despite professional challenges, Reich experienced personal happiness. His relationship with Elsa Lindenberg was good, and they considered marriage. However, when Lindenberg became pregnant in 1935, Reich insisted on an illegal abortion due to uncertainties about the future. In 1937, Reich began an affair with a female patient and, simultaneously, had an affair with Gerd Bergersen, a Norwegian textile designer. Despite these affairs, Reich developed intense jealousy towards Lindenberg, demanding she not have a separate life, leading to strained relations. Lindenberg refused to accompany Reich to the United States, reflecting the impact of the opposition on their relationship. In 1939, Wilhelm Reich arrived in the United States, sponsored by Theodore P. Wolff, a Columbia University professor. Wolff secured an invitation from the new school in New York for Reich to teach, and with financial support, facilitated Reich's settlement in the U.S. Reich began teaching a course on biological aspects of character formation at the new school. His ex-wife and daughters had already moved to the U.S. when Hitler annexed Austria in 1938. Reich's teaching at the new school continued until May 1941. During this period, he conducted experiments on mice with cancer, injecting them with bions and examining the vapors and lights produced in a small Faraday cage. In October 1939, he met Ilse Allendorf, who eventually became his bookkeeper, laboratory assistant, and later, his second wife. They began living together in 1939, and despite an initially insisted abortion, they had a son, Peter, in 1944, getting married in 1946. Reich's personality changed after his time in Oslo. He became socially isolated, distancing himself even from old friends and his ex-wife. His relationship with Elsa Lindenberg came to an end in January 1940, as Reich wrote to her, expressing despair and a belief that he would end up dying alone. After arriving in New York in 1939, Wilhelm Reich introduced the concept of orgone energy or orgone radiation and founded the study of it called orgonomy. Reich claimed to have observed orgone energy when injecting mice with bions and through an organoscope, a specialized telescope. He believed orgone energy permeated the soil and air, appearing as a blue or blue-gray hue. Reich argued that humanity had divided its understanding of this energy into ether for the physical aspect and God for the spiritual, associating manifestations of orgone with various phenomena like the color of the sky, northern lights, and excited frogs. In 1940, Reich began constructing orgone accumulators, insulated Faraday cages designed to concentrate orgone energy. The first human-sized accumulator was built in December 1940, intended for patients to sit inside them naked. Reich claimed the orgone concentration inside the box was 3 to 5 times stronger than in the air. He tested the accumulators on plant growth and mice with cancer, asserting that orgone energy could destroy cancerous growth. Despite not being licensed to practice medicine in the U.S., Reich conducted tests on humans diagnosed with cancer and schizophrenia, facing challenges such as premature interruptions and complaints to medical authorities. Despite criticism, Reich urged his supporters to stand by him, convinced that he had developed a comprehensive theory of physical and mental health. In 1941, Wilhelm Reich engaged with Albert Einstein in discussions about orgone accumulators. Reich, who had contacted Einstein in December 1940, visited him in January 1941, presenting his discovery of a specific biologically effective energy with potential applications against disease and fascism. Einstein, intrigued, performed experiments with an orgone accumulator provided by Reich. However, Einstein concluded that the observed temperature changes were due to the room's temperature gradient, not orgone. Reich responded with a 25-page letter attempting to convince Einstein otherwise, citing various measures taken to rule out confounding factors. Despite regular updates from Reich, Einstein did not engage further, and 3 years later, Reich threatened to publish their exchange. In response, Einstein requested his name not be misused for advertising and claimed he couldn't devote more time to the matter. Reich perceived Einstein's change of stance as part of a conspiracy, publishing their correspondence in 1953 as the Einstein Affair. In May 1941, Wilhelm Reich lost his position at the new school and faced eviction from Kessel Street due to controversial claims about curing cancer and animal experiments. With support from his followers, he bought a house at 9906 69th Avenue. However, following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Reich was arrested by the FBI in December 1941 and detained at Ellis Island for over 3 weeks. He identified himself as the Associate Professor of Medical Psychology and Director of the Orgone Institute. After being released on January 5, 1942, he remained under surveillance. The FBI later acknowledged a case of mistaken identity and closed Reich's file in November 1943. In November 1942, Reich purchased a farm in Dodge Pond, Maine, near Rangeley, which he named Orgonon. Over the years, he developed it into a center for the study of orgone, with various buildings, including a laboratory, observatory, and cabins. In 1950, Reich moved to Orgonon year-round with his family and colleagues, aiming to establish it as a hub for orgone research. The Wilhelm Reich Museum is currently located at Orgonon, preserving his legacy. In 1947, Wilhelm Reich's reputation faced a significant decline following critical articles by Mildred Edie Brady, published in Harper's and the New Republic. Brady targeted both Reich and psychoanalysis, presenting orgone as a cosmic energy named after the. She falsely claimed that Reich asserted his orgone accumulators could cure cancer and impotence. In July 1947, the Federal Trade Commission asked the FDA to investigate Reich's health claims about orgone. The FDA deemed his work a fraud of the first magnitude, suspecting potential misconduct within Reich's activities. In 1950, Reich established the Orgonomic Infant Research Center, OIRC, to prevent muscular armor in children. However, reports emerged of allegations against OIRC therapists, though not directly implicating Reich. Some individuals recounted physical harm during vegetotherapy sessions, where therapists pressed forcefully on their bodies. Reich's son, Peter, and others revealed the pain caused by these practices. Misconduct allegations, along with physical harm complaints, led to the closure of the OIRC in 1952. In September 1951, Wilhelm Reich and Ilse Allendorf divorced amid suspicions of infidelity. Despite the divorce, Reich continued to involve Allendorf in his work, extracting confessions of fear and hatred from her, which he stored in the Orgone Institute archives. Reich himself engaged in an affair with Lois Weivel. In 1951, he introduced the concept of deadly orgone radiation, DOR, and designed the Cloudbuster, a device intended to manipulate orgone energy and induce rain. Reich conducted experiments, successfully causing rain during a drought in Maine in 1953. The FDA's investigation into orgone accumulators prompted Reich's defiant responses, labeling them high GS hoodlums in government. Convinced of influential government friends, including President Eisenhower, Reich believed he was protected. In 1952, FDA inspectors visited Orgonon unannounced, leading to a confrontation where Reich insisted they read his work before interacting. In 1954, the U.S. Attorney filed for a permanent injunction under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to ban interstate shipment of orgone accumulators and promotional literature. Reich, refusing to appear in court, expressed his distrust of the court's ability to judge primordial cosmic orgone energy. The default injunction in March 1954 ordered the destruction of accumulators and related materials, restricting Reich's publications mentioning orgone. Following the FDA's injunction, Wilhelm Reich's mental health deteriorated, leading him to believe in a UFO attack by energy alphas. He claimed to see UFOs shaped like cigars with windows, emitting deadly orgone radiation. Reich, along with his son, engaged in nightly searches for UFOs, deploying cloudbusters to combat them, asserting he shot several down. In Arizona, they waged a full-scale interplanetary battle. Reich even suggested the remote possibility that his father was from outer space. In late 1954, he began an affair with Greth Hoff and later with Aurora Carrer, moving to Washington, D.C., under the pseudonym Dr. Walter Rohner. In May 1956, Reich faced contempt of court charges after an associate sent an accumulator part across state lines, violating the injunction. Representing himself, Reich admitted the violation but pleaded not guilty, hinting at conspiracies. Found guilty on May 7, 1956, he received a 2-year prison sentence, and his associate, Dr. Michael Silvert, was sentenced to a year and a day. The Wilhelm Reich Foundation was fined $10,000, and the court ordered the destruction of accumulators and related literature. After the destruction of Wilhelm Reich's accumulators and promotional material, 6 tons of his books, journals, and papers were burned in New York, marking a significant act of censorship. The FDA, meant only to observe, oversaw the destruction. Reich appealed the lower court's decision in October 1956, but the Court of Appeals upheld it in December. Despite multiple attempts, including writing to J. Edgar Hoover and appealing to the Supreme Court, Reich was unsuccessful. On March 12, 1957, he and Michael Silvert were sent to Danbury Federal Prison. Silvert later committed suicide. Reich, exhibiting signs of paranoia, was transferred to Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary, where he continued his mathematical pursuits. Despite applying for a presidential pardon, Reich remained in prison. Peter visited him, and Reich expressed anticipation for his release on November 10, 1957, having served 1/3 of his sentence. However, his parole hearing was scheduled a few days before that date. In his last letter to Peter on October 22, 1957, Reich looked forward to a meal at Howard Johnson after his release. Wilhelm Reich, the once famed psychoanalyst and associate of Sigmund Freud, died on November 3, 1957, in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary, Pennsylvania, where he was serving a 2-year term for distributing his invention, the orgone energy accumulator. The prison doctor reported that Reich died of myocardial insufficiency with sudden heart failure. He was found during roll call and was buried in a vault at Organon, following his instructions for a non-religious ceremony. The epitaph on his granite headstone read, Wilhelm Reich, born March 24, 1897, died. Time magazine noted his death and highlighted his unconventional sex and energy theories, emphasizing his legal troubles related to the orgone energy accumulator. Academic journals did not carry obituaries for Reich. Reception and legacy. Psychotherapy. Wilhelm Reich, initially considered a brilliant clinician and teacher in the 1920s, faced a decline in reputation within the psychoanalytic community. Later analysts viewed him as paranoid and belligerent. Rumors circulated in the late 1920s that he had been hospitalized. Some analysts diagnosed him with schizophrenia, while Reich's daughter speculated on bipolar disorder and possible childhood. Despite these challenges, Reich's work on character and muscular armoring influenced the development of ego psychology, body psychotherapy, and therapeutic approaches like Gestalt therapy, bioenergetic analysis, and primal therapy. Humanities. Reich's ideas had a significant impact on intellectuals such as Saul Bellow, William Burroughs, Norman Mailer, A.S. Neill, founder of Summerhill School, and Michel Foucault. The FDA's pursuit of Reich intensified the attachment of philosopher Paul Edwards. Reich's influence extended to educational settings, with courses on him taught at New York University from 1968, making it one of the longest-running courses in the university's history. Notable figures, including Orson Bean, Sean Connery, Allen Ginsberg, Paul Goodman, Jack Kerouac, Isaac Rosenfeld, J.D. Salinger, William Steig, and Robert Anton Wilson, used orgone accumulators. Norman Mailer's enthusiastic writings about Reich in the Village Voice turned Organon into a pilgrimage site, symbolizing liberation through the orgasm. Popular culture. Wilhelm Reich continued to influence popular culture posthumously. The film Barbarella, 1968, featured a character resembling Reich, portrayed as the evil Dr. Duran Durand. A Yugoslav director made W.R., Mysteries of the Organism, 1971, exploring Reich's ideas. Woody Allen's film Sleeper, 1973, included an orgone accumulator named Orgasmatron. The short film It Can Be Done, 1999, dramatized Reich's therapies, the FDA's actions, and featured at the Venice Film Festival. Musicians incorporated Reich's life into their work. Patti Smith's Birdland, 1975, and Hawkwind's Orgone Accumulator, 1973, drew inspiration from Reich. Bob Dylan referenced Reich in Joey, 1976. Kate Bush's Cloudbusting, 1985, portrayed Reich's arrest, with Donald Sutherland as Reich. Robert Anton Wilson's play Wilhelm Reich in Hell, 1987, and the novel Soft Invasions, 2017, continued exploring Reich's life. Science. After book burning in 1960, Reich's major works were republished, leading to renewed interest. Reichian physicians organized study groups, and the Journal of Orgonomy, 1967, and the American College of Orgonomy, 1968, were established. The Orgone Biophysical Research Laboratory, 1978, and the Institute for Orgonomic Science, 1982, were founded. In 2007, Reich's archives at Harvard University were unsealed. James Strick studied Reich's laboratory notebooks, publishing Wilhelm Reich, Biologist, 2015, challenging the pseudoscientist narrative. Strick argued that Reich's Oslo work represented advancements in microscopy. The Harvard University Press publication presents Reich's story as much more complex and interesting. Speaking in 2011, Reich's son, Peter, characterized his father as a 19th-century scientist navigating 20th-century America, emphasizing the clash of his father's mindset with the scientific practices of his time. Thanks for watching. If you found the video interesting and want more like this, don't forget to like and subscribe.